time to take a look at this, the Apple Macintosh SE. What I would consider to be the first major overhaul of the Macintosh. See, in 1984, Apple introduced the original Macintosh, which was retroactively referred to as the Macintosh 128. Later in 1984, they came out with the 512, which was basically the same thing. It was nicknamed the Fat Mac because it had more memory. It was basically a 128 with the RAM maxed out. Then Apple introduced the Macintosh Plus, which brought along with it a number of new ideas, not the least of which was the idea of a SCSI port on the back, and also user expandable memory, or at least more easily expandable memory by the end user if they had the tools required, because it used 30-pin SIMs. Box art really doesn't do a good job of really demonstrating it, but I don't really feel like pulling the Plus out of the box right now. So, you can get a good idea for what it looked like just based on this box art. The original Macintosh was basically the same general idea. The SE, I think you'll agree, looks quite a bit different. Following Apple's new, at the time, I believe they called it the Snow White design language. A lot of systems looked like this back then. Things like the Macintosh II, which would have actually came out at the same time as the SE, or roughly the same time as the SE. The Apple IIgs kind of looked like this. Now, most people, when they see the acronym SE, they think of second edition. And that's what I actually thought that it stood for on this, at first, and until relatively recently. But no, it actually stands for something else. Well, not literally something else. The SE in Macintosh SE stands for System Expansion. Now, calling it that might be a little bit of a misnomer, because you could technically expand the Macintosh Plus. It did have SCSI after all. And all Macintoshes had the external floppy port, which you could use to add an external floppy drive. Or, Apple did have what was called the HD20, which was a hard drive that hooked up to the floppy port. That was sold for the Macintosh 512, so you could have a hard drive on your Mac 512. Very slow and very uncommon. I think I've only ever seen one. And I know that there's one on eBay right now, actually, so I guess I've seen two. But I've seen one in person. And Macintosh Plus, forgetting, also had SIMs, so you could expand the memory. But the only thing inside the Macintosh Plus that you could expand, the only thing that was part of the base system unit that you could touch as an end user, was the memory. The SE lets you touch so much more. You may have noticed this really funny looking front panel. If you have a look at this here, you can see there's a blanking plate here with a light. That's an oddity on a Macintosh. You usually don't see that. And there's this little hole right here. The base model Macintosh SE, which this is actually one, sold with two 800 kilobyte floppy drives. So it actually has two internal 3.5-inch bays. But that 3.5-inch bay could be ordered with either a second floppy drive or a 20 megabyte hard drive, or optionally also a 40 megabyte hard drive. Those were options, called the 20SC and the 40SC in Apple parlance. If we flip this around, which is very easy, owing to its carrying handle at the top, these were designed to be portable, at a time when desktop computers really were not portable. I mean, look at the PC of the time. Good luck carrying that anywhere. You can actually see some evidence of this having been a base model. You see 1 megabyte of RAM and two 800K drives, so this has been upgraded, obviously, with the hard drive, which is a 20 megabyte hard drive. We'll discuss that here in a minute, because there is something special about it, if only slightly. Now, taking a look at the back, this is a radical redesign from the back panel of a Macintosh Plus, if you're familiar with a Macintosh Plus. Power supply is completely different, and it includes a cooling fan, which helped address some of the overheating issues experienced by the Macintosh Plus and earlier systems. Looking around here, you will notice these ports down here. Now, if you're familiar with later Macintoshes, these will need no introductions. These are Apple Desktop Bus ports. There's 2 of them. This was new with the Macintosh SE. Prior Macintoshes, like the Plus and the original, they all used the old style RJ11 jack in the front of the computer for the keyboard, and in the back was a 15-pin, sorry, not a 15-pin, a 9-pin DB9 connection for the mouse. But it was not a serial mouse. It's very important to note that. It's a distinction that a lot of people get wrong. It was not a serial mouse. But this was the first one to use Apple Desktop Bus, which was not pioneered by the Macintosh. It was pioneered by the Apple IIgs, which is probably why it's not called the Mac Desktop Bus or the Macintosh Desktop Bus or anything similar. You still have a floppy connector there, so you could add an external floppy if you wanted. You could have 2 floppy drives and a hard drive. SCSI, again, pretty standard stuff. 2 Apple serial connections, one for printer, one for modem. Earphone output. And then there's this right here, which is the big thing that gave the Macintosh SE its name. This is the first Macintosh to feature expansion slots. Oh sure, it's only got 1, and the Macintosh II also came out around the same time as the Macintosh SE in 1987, and it had, I think it was 6. I have one actually, an M5000. I believe it had 6 NuBus expansion slots. This is not NuBus. This is PDS, Processor Direct Slot, which interacted directly with the Motorola CPU on the main board. In this case, the case of the SE, it is a Motorola 68000 clocked at 8 MHz, identical to all of the previous Macintoshes. This came with 1 MB of memory. I don't remember what this has in it right now. It might be more than 1 MB. I think you could also order these with 2 MB of memory installed if you wish to do so. They could accept up to 4 MB, but there's a resistor that you have to clip inside in order to allow them to take 1 MB SIMs. Here, of course, is a little sticker. Kind of interesting, don't know what that really refers to. And then this is the place where I got it. Off of eBay, of course. For far less than market value. We'll just leave it at that. Probably more than I would have liked to pay, but still far less than market value. These things are definitely not getting cheaper. So that's a lot of improvement over the Macintosh Plus. But, at the end of the day, it is still a Macintosh Plus at the heart of it all. It's just got some of these additional features. It's still an 8 MHz Motorola 68000. It's still limited to 4 MB of memory, like the Macintosh Plus, and all later Macintoshes that shared the same basic design, other than the SE30, which came after this, and also the Classic II. Those use a different processor that did not have the memory bandwidth limitations that these did, because they're only a 16-bit processor at the end of the day. I think they're 16-bit. They might only be 8-bit. I'd have to certainly look. Okay, slight correction. They're actually 32-bit processors, but they have a 16-bit data path. As mentioned, these could be ordered in a number of different configurations. They could have 2 floppy drives. I guess they could have 2 hard drives if you really wanted to do that, but why would you do that? You'd have to get an external floppy drive. I'd honestly like to see somebody do that. I wonder if you could. I don't think you can. I think the problem is you'd have to find a cable that would actually support the 2 drives, but it would be kind of interesting as a modding project. Not that I'd ever do that to something like this, which is in such good condition. I mean, it's not perfect, obviously. It's not a museum piece or anything like that, but it's certainly better than a lot of these things do, and it works, which is very important. But the big thing about this is that it still has the old 256K Macintosh toolbox, which does not support 1.44 meg high-density floppy drives. So you cannot put a 1.44 meg floppy drive in this, and even if you upgrade the ROM, you still can't do it because the floppy drive controller doesn't support it either. You have to replace them both. And at that point, you might as well just get a whole new logic board, maybe an SE30 board or anything like that. Apple did release what was called the SE-FD-HD, what was later called the SE SuperDrive, model M5011 versus this M5010, which did have support out of the box and shipped with 1.44 meg drives. This was introduced in 1987, it was discontinued in 1989 when the SE-FD-HD came out. And I think the only thing left to really do is to come back to our hard drive situation and then power it up. So, hard drive wise, a lot of people associate Apple with quantum hard drives. But they didn't use quantum hard drives in the beginning. They used a number of different manufacturers. And a lot of these machines in particular have got a very noticeable sound, this one included. You can tell what drive it is just from the sound that it makes. Have a quick listen when I flip the switch on the back of this. And then we'll watch it boot at the same time, and then we'll pick up our conversation. I believe this has had a memory upgrade, that's why it takes so long to complete its self-test. It's also got a custom splash screen. It is in French. Doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video. I will have to reinstall the operating system, it's pretty messed up. I just have to figure out a way to get 800K floppies made on something like this. For something like this. But that hard drive sounds interesting, doesn't it? In fact, it doesn't sound like a voice coil drive at all. And you'd be right, it's not. It's a stepper motor drive. That is a mini scribe model 8425SA. Now what does that mean? Well, 84 doesn't really mean much, that's a mini scribe thing. 25 means 25 megabytes unformatted. S for SCSI, and A for Apple firmware, which is what was required back in the day. It is the same drive that is at the heart of the HD20SC external hard drive that you could purchase from Apple for things like the Macintosh Plus. At least I believe that it's the same drive. Again, you could have different manufacturers. Some things had quantum hard drives, some had Connor Peripherals hard drives. I've even seen a Seagate. I think my Macintosh II has a Seagate drive in it. But these were the OG for Apple hard drives. And it's amazing that this one still works because most of them don't. Which is really kind of unfortunate because, like I said, I really like the way that drive sounds. Now, I'm going to probably adjust the brightness here because I think it's turned up. Oh, it's not. Wow, that's bright. So it goes basically all the way down. All the way up. This screen is in very good shape. Put it about there. It's in better shape than the classic back there. You may have seen in the previous video. This is not the original mouse, and, well, definitely, it's a Kensington aftermarket mouse. This is not the original keyboard either. What it would have come with would have probably looked something more like that. I'm just using this keyboard because it's what's here. And again, like the classic, this does not support soft power on. None of the compact Macs do. Let's see. Oh yeah, this has been upgraded. See, this is running Finder. Oh, sorry, it's basically System 6.0.7. Got 4 megabytes of memory. See, there's the Finder there and the system. I believe there are some programs on here, but again, this OS install is a little messed up. No, there aren't. Here, that hard drive. I can't really open much because it's messed up. All the programs are missing. print monitor would work. But I don't think... Startup screen. Yeah, that's messed up. I don't know why portable is there, but sure. Multi-finder, printer descriptions. There's a brightness control panel right there, but I can't open it. So you can see just how messed up this really is. Can't open up accessories, that's a document. For some reason, it should be a folder. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Is there an undo option? Nope. Doesn't really matter, it's not going to load anyway. I don't even know where it moved it to. Oh, there it is. Like I said, I can't open it, so it doesn't make much of a difference. Put that back where it came from. So this one will definitely need some work. By the way, this is the same screen that's in all of these compact Macs. It's a 9-inch black and white, well, monochrome. I don't think it can actually do any more than 2 bits. If you take a look here. It looks like it can, because it looks like there's a gray background, but that's just dithering. It might do 4 grayscales at its absolute maximum. Here's the general control panel. I wanted to open that. Not that it'll actually open, as you see there. So this is definitely going to require some work. But, unlike a lot of Macintosh SEs these days, it does actually work. And is certainly worth investing the time in. Now, one thing that might be kind of interesting, I don't have any out here, is to see whether or not this actually still has an 800 kilobyte floppy drive in it. Or if somebody has also upgraded this with the 1.4 meg mod, I guess you could call it, hack maybe, I don't know. But I do know that at the very least, doing so would involve replacing the floppy drive controller and the ROM. I believe there's also a version of the macOS in ROM on one of these. Okay, there is no ROM, no bootable ROM disk on the SE, but just for kicks and grins, I brought the classic back over here. So here it is. Not much to it. System 6.0.3. I don't think there's really much on the boot disk. Just a system folder. No applications or anything like that. So. Of course, when you reboot, quiet chime and all, it will boot back to the hard drive. So from here, we'll do one more test. Show you how long it takes to boot up the ROM compared to the hard drive. Hold down Command Option XO. Alright, booting to the ROM. Look how fast that is. Craziness. It's already ready to go. And we can adjust it. This classic monitor is not too bad, but it still is dimmer than the SE. So, that is pretty much it for this Macintosh SE. Stay tuned in the future. I will be certainly making a video where I redo the operating system on this computer. But for now, that is it. Thank you for watching, and if you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. Again, no soft power off functionality here.